Let's get salty!
Hey everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hearthstone, the 22nd edition of our weekly news recap series where we take a look at all the news and events in the Hearthstone world in the past week. And before we get into our top stories, I want to do a quick channel update. As some of you may have known, I got a little bit sick this week, got a little bit hard to do things, so I had to postpone our 20,000 subscriber 20-hour stream. Supposed to do it yesterday or today as I'm recording this, and I have to push it back to next week. So next week we'll be doing it next Sunday at twitch.tv/Zeddy. But to make up for it, if we do hit 21,000 subs by Sunday, it'll be a 21-hour stream. Or if, say we hit 22,000 subs for some reason, it'll be a 22-hour stream. And for every additional 1,000 subs, I'm going to be giving away another bundle. Basically, there's the mini set coming out. There'll be bundles with it. I'll be giving away a bonus one for each 1K. So if you haven't subbed yet, hit that button and we'll have even more stuff to give away and more ridiculous streaming content to give away as well. So hit that button. Anyways, let's take a look at the top stories of the week. So first one, this is a personal one for me, and I'm going to push it hard because I don't care, but the Wild community continues to be ignored, neglected, and effectively disrespected in my opinion. The second top story is the Hearthstone HSesports finally provides an update or an announcement of an announcement, and there is some details going forward about what's happening this year, and we'll have our standard and wild meta update as always, and we'll have the mailbag segment where I answer your questions. So let's get going right into the top story, and that is the Wild community continues just to be outright ignored, disrespected, and neglected. And why do I say this? Well, let's take a look at the past year. Past year, what happened for the Wild scene? We saw no events whatsoever from Blizzard. There was no Wild Open and no explanation for it. Such won't even give us the courtesy of saying there wouldn't be one. Just pretend it never existed or whatever. There has not been a word about that since then. We got a couple of nerfs early on. We saw like the quest for Mage get nerfed. I think we saw Blood Bloom get nerfed, and then we eventually saw Dark Glare got nerfed. So there was a few nerfs, like 3. Compare that to Standard, where there was like, what, 50 just in Demon Hunter alone? And now, the latest balance patch we got, again, nothing for Wild when the Wild meta is extremely stagnant. And now we had Igzar doing his AMA last Wednesday, which we covered on the channel, but outright ignored every single question regarding Wild when he would answer questions about duels, about tournament mode, about stand, all sorts of stuff. For some reason, they still want to talk about Wild, and it blows my mind because our Wild community is awesome. It's vibrant. It's big, especially in China. It's huge, and they continue to ignore it. The only comment we've had about Wild in like the last like half a year was a like off the cuff remark by Alec Dawson on one explanation of one of the balance patches that they're going to look into Wild more regularly in the future, which really, I mean, we've heard that so many times. That really doesn't mean much. And I just don't understand. You have this amazing community that is so frustrated. Like, I can't count how many people that regularly stream the format that just don't or barely do anymore. Jack doesn't stream it. Dane played Legends of Runeterra for a while because he couldn't take it anymore. I've seen tweets from like Swagwar all the time, like upset about the Wild meta. I get DMs and personal mentions on Twitter about Wild. What can be done? Can something be done? And basically it just stems around the fact that like Secret Mage, Reno Priest, and Dark Lair Warlock are like tier 1 decks, and then everything else is like tier 3 or 4. Like, it's just, there's such a huge gap in between these decks, and they're so non-interactive, they're so unfun to face, that you just rather not play. Like, even Big Priest doesn't even really make the cut, and it can cheat out Shadow Essence on 5. It's just, anything to be done about these 3 decks would just do a lot of work. If these decks were in Standard, they would have been nerfed months ago, but because it's Wild, I guess it's going to be Wild. They leave it alone, yet, except they've addressed that Wild needs balance patches. We've seen it in the past before, so which one is it going to be? And the fact that they are outright silent and won't say anything about it, one way or the other, is just really frustrating. So Igzar said they will be doing the Ask Me Anything every single Wednesday, so I will be asking this time around. I know others asked about Wild. I'll put my question out there. I hope they respond. I hope they at least acknowledge it. If not, I'll be really, disheartened, upset by it, but I'll put my voice out there. I'll do what I can, but man, Blizzard, please, like, give the WoW community a bone. We're paying customers just like everybody else, and there's such an amazing community to be thrived on here. It just seems silly to constantly ignore it, neglect it, and just not do anything to cater to it when there's a lot of money to be made here, trust me. Next story is the Hearthstone esports actually made an announcement. It's more of an announcement, but they gave us a little bit of a crumb to get us there until they make the official announcement of like what worlds and GM and all that stuff's going to look like. But they tweeted this out a few days ago saying that the top 32 finishes on each server will qualify for the next, I guess, Grandmasters event. Typically, there's like a Grandmasters event, and if you win that, you become a GM, basically. So finally, ladder matters. If you're one of those people tryharding on Legend Ladder, finish top 32 this month, you will qualify for the next event. And it's important to note, this is more than double what it was last year. Last year was top 16 would qualify you for an event. So that's a good thing, making it more accessible. But maybe it's just 32 this month because they didn't count December, and maybe, you know, it'll go back to 16. We don't know. We'll see in the official announcement. And they said that would be coming later this week. So I'll provide you guys on an update probably on next This Week in Hearthstone on that. But at least we got something. Finally, this is saying something. At least we know there's going to be some kind of an esports program, which it'd be a real shame if it would go away. Next, we have the standard and wild meta update. And while we had the nerfs go live for Edwin and for Bogspine Knuckles, and yeah, the big winner out of all this for standard was Rogue. Yeah, Rogue and Warrior particularly. It's still Whirlwick Rogue. Edwin's still basically an auto-include in most Rogue decks. It's still pretty busted. You can still cheat it out on turn 1 with Foxy Fraud. And yeah, Whirlwick Rogue is just ridiculous. People have got rank 1 Legend with it. And the big Warrior deck that's doing very well is like ETC Control Warrior. Tempo Warriors made a comeback, like the old Enrage combo with like Korkron Elite, or you go Grommash. So yeah, Rogue and Warrior are like the absolute 2 most popular decks, at least at high Legend. And you see Paladin doing pretty well as well. But yeah, Rogue, Warrior, big winners in standard. Whereas in Wild, yeah, nothing's changed. I can't really make anything up here. Again, Wild is as stagnant as it's ever been. I'm hoping the mini set does something, but I would rather see a balance patch because Wild deserves it. But yeah, no real Wild meta update. Play your usual decks, play Reno Priest, play Darklair Warlock, play Secret Mage, and, you know, you can tinker around with like Big Priest or whatever. There's just nothing to talk about for Wild, and it's really disheartening. And lastly, we have the mailbag segment where I answer your questions. If you want me to answer your question on next week's episode, make sure to leave a comment in the comments below with mailbag question in the text so it's easy to spot. So first, Carl asked, what happened to your Rewind series? Still waiting on Ostaka versus Tice, aka best Hearthstone match ever. So if you're not aware, I used to do a Hearthstone Rewind series where I would go back in time, watch a famous esports matchup, and basically provide my commentary over it. Like, look at like, wow, it's crazy what cards saw play and a little bit historical context. I think we did, I'm pretty sure we did Rekful versus Crip. We did Pavel Amnesiac, and I think Firebat's first world championship win. And I haven't done one since. We just did a Hearthstone reaction thing to Trollden, which is kind of similar, but that one's more just fun. I plan on bringing it back. This is a match I would like to take a look at, but let me know in the comments below. Do you want to see Hearthstone Rewind come back? The videos did relatively well, but weren't like super hugely popular, but I'd be more than happy to bring it back and be more content. I thought they were a lot of fun. I just haven't really had the time, and there's just been so much different stuff going on that I haven't been able to do them lately. Ali asks, what is your favorite Battlegrounds hero? And for me, it's got to be Patches the Pirate. I know Patches isn't that great, but just going nuts with Patches, like especially when you get like Hogger or Double Hogger and you're just recycling all your gold, is super fun. Like you get these crazy APM turns. I rarely ever win with Patches, but I always pick him because he's just super fun and a really cool hero. I just wish Pirates were a little bit better. Without like Divine Shield or Poisonous options, it can be pretty rough. Mario asks, if you had the power to remove the card from like one card from the game from each rarity, what would it be? And I put a lot of thought into this, and this is certainly not a sarcastic Screw Priest answer, but for a common, I would get rid of Raise Dead. For a rare, I'll get rid of Resurrect. For an epic, I would get rid of Psychic Scream. And for a legendary, I'd get rid of Katrina Morte or Vargoth. Yeah, delete Priest. Aline asks, what's your opinion on the long-term effects of power creep on Hearthstone? So power creep has always been like a hot subject to talk about. And like, I do a lot of posts like on my Twitter, like memeing on power creep, like this in 2021 versus this in 2014, like secret passage versus sprint as an example here. And power creep is just a necessary evil. And when you're making like an online card game or any card game in general, for the developers to get people to come back to get excited about the game, you have to provide players with new and exciting things. And typically, you can't really do that by making similar stuff to the past. You have to make new and exciting, interesting stuff. And that's typically going to lead to power creep. And for the most part, that's fine because you want players to get excited, be engaged, get to do new powerful things. And to do that, power creep has to be a thing. It's just, what kind of way do you power creep? Do you power creep through interesting and more powerful mechanics, or just absurd, overpowered random stuff? Like Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and its unnerfed version was like the worst type of power creep. It's just completely broken, like ridiculously overpowered, and just like provided 0 mana dragons that were just super stupid. That type of power creep can frustrate you, but I know this is a bad example, but for example of like a better type of power creep is a card like Secret Passage, which allows for like an explosive, crazy cycle turn rather than like prep sprint, like it allows you to do stuff you've never been able to do before. Unfortunately, it's a little too ridiculous 1 mana draw for, but you kind of get the point. Like it allows you to do things in Rogue you've never been able to do. And I think you need that kind of power creep in the game. You have to have that right level. And that's incredibly, incredibly challenging to find that right level of power creep. What's too much, what's too little. And, they're constantly trying to figure out, and I would hate to have that job of trying to figure out what power creep is adequate. But I do think power creep is absolutely necessary in a game like Hearthstone. And lastly, Griffith asks, do you know any Hearthstone jokes? And yes, I've heard Hearthstone is very free to play friendly. So there you have it. That's This Week in Hearthstone. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.